Hello, I'm Kalin. I used to be a professional chess player. Then I turned into the digital and founded and grew a company to 8 figures with very little grind and a lot of fun and almost no stress. And I'm here to let you into the experience of how this happened. And let's hope that you can also achieve amazing things. I'm not here to sell you anything. There's no paid courses, no bullshit. Everything is free and there are no strings attached. As I grow younger, we look at self-help quite differently. We aim very high. We try to do so much of a deep dive and so much simplification of concepts that everyone can understand, even the most complex things about life. And nothing is a bigger challenge than understanding how to improve our environment, how to construct our future, how to construct our life. So every situation that we are in is making us better person, more capable person, more successful person, reduces our fears so that we can achieve everything we want. And in this journey, I found that there was a central principle that you can follow everywhere in your life, and with no exceptions, it will improve your life everywhere. And here I'm gonna tell you everything about how I came to this principle, all my experience, give a lot of examples, and in the end, I'll give you actual training exercises about how to make this principle part of your daily life until on a subconscious level, you are doing everything so you can construct the best future for yourself. So stay till the end. When we want to construct a good environment for ourselves, we need to ask ourselves, what is a good environment? What are the things that really influence our lives? There are three obvious things. Our genes, which we cannot change, our past that created the stories that we tell about ourselves, how we interpret everything, the prism according to which we see the world, and our current environment, which is everything we interact with, all the people, all the situations, everything. So the genes are already more or less set in stone, so there's nothing you can do about them. The environment of today is a product of our past choices, and the choices of today will shape the environment of tomorrow. So basically, what we do with our environment will shape tomorrow to a large degree. As you remember, we separate everything into two: the game of self, everything in our head, and the game of life, everything around us. And in the game of self, there is only one good direction. It's the outgoing direction. You need to open yourself to the world in order to be mentally healthy. When you close yourself in, you get into the anxiety, the depression, the loneliness, and all of the problems that plague the world today. But you cannot force your game of self to be outgoing, because it's mostly happening in reaction to what happens around you. So in order to have an outgoing game of self, you need to have an outgoing game of life. But what does it mean to have an outgoing game of life? What does it mean to turn yourself to the world in your actual actions, not just your thoughts and feelings? For a start, something we have to do is really swallow our ego, make it as little as possible, so we don't focus on ourselves, we focus on the world around us, focus on improving the lives of other people, if possible, focus on learning, and focus on growth. The ability to construct different situations that can help you come to a better future is one of the most important abilities that you can have. And it requires a lot of intuition, because the future has almost infinite possibilities, so you cannot logically think and compare them all. It's intuition that will really give you the best ideas. Intuition is really powerful, it's very evolutionary ancient, and logic is evolutionary new, so not so powerful. It often leads us to logical fallacies where our logic fails. And intuition is really important. But if you're just starting to build your intuition because you didn't have the framework to build it on so far, you didn't know the building blocks of life, something we're very hard trying to explain in the simplest possible way in I Grow Younger. What do you do without having strong intuition about possible futures? Well, you can follow a central principle. And this central principle in the game of life about how to be outgoing, which will also lead to a happy and very capable game of self, this is what you can follow. To understand why it's not good to focus inwards, we can see the following vicious cycle. Let's say you're not having a good day and you're in sheep mode, so you're dominated by fear. And doing much is holding you back when you try to do something, when you try to make a change out of the mundane. And fears makes us cautious, and when we are cautious, we need a reason for everything, which downgrades our intuition and makes us more logical. But as we learned, logic, especially when we're driven by fear-based emotions, will not lead us to any good place. And when we start thinking, when we have too much logical thought, we do less. And doing is what gives us the most important thing in life. It gives us data points for our intuition, and it gives us the right hormones, the right triggers in our biology to get from sheep mode into hunter mode. And when we manage to get into hunter mode, where we start being dominated not by fear but by love, energy, curiosity, then this fixes most of the problems in our life. But if we cannot get doing because we think too much, we end up doing less and stuck in deeper sheep mode and have even more fears, even less intuition, even more overthinking, a lot of ruminating, and this is how the downward spirals happen. So now that we saw how the bad happens, let's reverse it and let's imagine how the progress in life happens. We just need to reverse this cycle. So we need to not have a reason for everything. And if we don't have a reason for everything, this means that we no more need boxes, logical thinking, definition. We need more flow, more intuition, and more doing. Once you open up, it becomes harder to close down. And once you close down, it becomes harder to open up. So this is a constant tug of war between the two forces in you. And it's very important to open up at all possible opportunities. How does this happen? You need around you the structures that help you to open up. We'll call them flow structures. The structures that cause you to close in, we'll call box structures. So what are flows and what are boxes? You can imagine that flows are like rivers. They flow, they bring change, they never sit still, they are always in motion. Boxes are like areas that are divided by mountains. They don't change, and what they don't like is rivers. The mountain doesn't want to let the river pass, and it takes a very strong river to pass through a mountain. So the boxes always get in the way of the flows, and the flows always destroy the boxes if they are strong enough. So this is how you can imagine it. Boxes and flows are not two sides of the same coin. It's not like two things that complement each other. They are categorically different, and in this way they destroy each other. They are like fire and ice. Ice is just the way things are, and fire is a different thing that destroys ice. How can you tell a box from a flow? It's not hard at all, but if you haven't done it before, here are a few principles you can follow. Boxes have boundaries, limits, borders. You can explore exactly where one box ends and another one begins. And boxes are defined by other boxes. If you want to tell someone about your box, you have to use the box language. Flows don't have any boundaries. They flow in every direction where nothing blocks them, and they mix. And when they mix, the result is usually something beautiful. You can call it transcendental because it's often something that we didn't expect to exist at all. The boxes can be measured exactly. Flows cannot be measured, but they can be compared. You can compare a strong flow to a weak flow, but you can never know how much stronger it is. And very important that the flows are something that happens inside you. So you can never compare your flows to someone else's flows, because no one can show their flows to the world exactly how they happen, because they don't really know where they start and when they end. So you should never compare yourself to other people, not only for all the other reasons, but because all of the real value and beauty in life is carried by the flows. And since you cannot compare the flows, the really meaningful things in life, you can never compare to other people because you're not fully aware of yours and you're certainly totally not aware of theirs and vice versa. How do you know if something is a box and you just haven't found the boundary, or it's a flow and there is no boundary? It should be easy in time to differentiate that, but there's a hack to make it even easier. If you divide the box in two, it will just become into two smaller boxes. But if you divide the flow into two, it will just be two flows as strong or almost as strong as before. But how can this happen? Isn't this like structurally impossible? Here is why it happens. It happens because the flows are not in the real world, they are part of you. And you participate in everything that you do, so the flows are everywhere. You can take the following example. Let's say we have a barrel of wine and we can pour this barrel into 100 bottles. Or if we make them half size into 200, Demi from my team is smiling because she really likes wine. She would love this example. So you can pour the barrel of wine into different bottles. And the barrel is a box and the bottles are also boxes. So the more bottles you pour it in, the smaller they would have to be, and it's just the normal box logic. But if you make the wine better, let's say it's really good wine, then it would be really good wine in all of the bottles. Even if you pour it into 10,000 tiny bottles, it will still be the same great wine because it's a characteristic of the wine itself. That's how flows work. If the flow gives you some benefit, it just translates to everything you do because it's part of you and you participate in everything you do. So the flow is just a universal benefit. So if you truly love life, you love all the people in your life. And if you truly love someone in your life, you love all the people and life a bit more. It's just the true things in life, they know no barriers. So things like love and energy and motivation, all of the flows, they have no barriers. They have no boxes. If you're motivated about something, you're motivated about everything. This is how it works if you're truly, truly motivated. If you're motivated about nothing, well, you're motivated about nothing. So the flows are something that is very hard to directly control because they're universal and you don't know where they start and when they end. The boxes you have a lot of control over, but they don't bring the most value in life. And from this situation, how do we make progress? The real world is mostly made of boxes. There's one clear flow in the real world, which is nature, just as you, when you just are, you are, and you have the flows inside. Nature is a flow because it just is. There are no boxes in nature. If you look at the earth from space, there are no borders, no countries, just one beautiful ecosystem. When you go to a forest, there are no boxes, there are different things, but they are all very interconnected. And when you walk into the forest, it's a flow experience. When we use the word flow from now on, we will mean not just the flows in you, but everything in the real world that makes you closer to a flow state of being, which means walking in the forest is a flow because you become more flowy when you walk in the forest. Another thing that is really a flow is creativity. If you're creative in something, you become more creative in every area of your life. And if you have an area of your life that is box dominated and kills your creativity, let's say you work a shitty 9-to-5 job with no opportunity for creativity, this will make you less creative in everything because your brain is just trained to be less creative. If you wonder if something is a flow, ask this question: does it touch every part of my life? Because some boxes, even the hardest to achieve ones, for example, becoming wealthy or winning an Olympic gold medal, they are just boxes. So they will not touch everything in your life. Even if you win an Olympic gold medal, you'll be very happy for a while and then you need to continue with your life. And the fact that you won a gold medal is just a very beautiful box, but just a box, and you need some real meaning in your life and some other source of happiness, because humans are built in a way that whatever we achieve, then we need something new. And it's very important to remember that boxes cannot bring real long-term happiness and meaning to your life. So you really need flows, at least one flow, preferably more. So if you have to summarize the best mental health advice in 3 lines, the good things for mental health have a flow structure. Love, empathy, meaning, all are flows. The bad things for mental health have a box structure, including too much overthinking and all of the addiction patterns that every one of us has a box structure. It's just a box that's repeating over time. Every period of time that is set and we know what we do with it, it's a box. So we have boxes in space, in the structures that we create as humans, and we have boxes in time. There's a very important note to make, especially in people who are struggling with mental health problems, that love is a flow, but fear is not a flow. They are kind of opposites, but not exactly, because love is an absolutely true flow and it knows no boundaries, but fear has a very important difference, which is that fear sets a boundary, a barrier between you and the world. If you are afraid, then you are afraid of something, even if it's subconscious, and there's a barrier between you and what you're afraid of. So fear boxes you in, even if the box is really invisible, because it may happen that you have strong fears, depression, anxiety, which means that you are just boxed in. You become a box yourself and you don't want to interact with the real world. You don't want to get out of bed in the morning, or the interaction with the real world, no matter how much of it you have, doesn't bring you real joy and meaning. There are a lot of depressed people who are actually very active. They are searching for meaning in the world, searching for joy, but they cannot find real joy and meaning because they have this wall between themselves and the world. So when there are serious mental health problems, there's a wall. This wall walls you in, and you can imagine that the world is on the other side. You are alone inside the wall, and the wall is a mirror wall. So everywhere you see only yourself, which means all of the pressure in this situation is on yourself, and it's very different, and it's very difficult to interact with the world outside. And this is an oversimplified, but still quite decent picture of how mental health problems look in general. You are boxed in, you're turned inwards, and everywhere you see just yourself in all of the mirrors. And if you want to escape this, you have to break one of the mirrors, but since you see your image everywhere, you wouldn't want to. And the wall of mirrors is sucking all of your strength by focusing everything on you, making everything about you. And what happens is when the wall is taking your strength by focusing on you and making you think and overthink everything about yourself, you don't have the strength to break the wall. This is like a Darwinistic struggle between you and the wall for power on a very primitive level. And the end result is that the wall may take all of your power and you may not have the power to break the wall. And this is one of the cases where you should definitely seek professional help, go to therapy, make an effort to get help from outside to help you really target your efforts and break the wall. Because if you don't break the wall, your interaction with the world is broken, and also all of the pressure that you put on yourself is also damaging yourself. So definitely, if you feel that this in any way applies to you, you should seek therapy as soon as possible. And it's not in any way bad to seek therapy in any case, whether you want to get from bad to normal or from normal to amazing. Therapy is always good, but in this case, you definitely need to seek therapy because the wall may be sucking all of your power, and in this case, you may need professional help to get some of your power back and break the wall. An important sign that you're having the wall problem, more or less, is that the reflections on the wall make everything about you, and this make performance much more important than joy in any activity, because you see yourself in all of those mirrors and everything becomes about you and how you look, not only to others but also to yourself. And this make performance and the evaluation of your performance very important, and then this takes the joy out of any activity, and this is very bad for mental health because joy is extremely important for good mental health. So if performance is more important than joy for you, if you overemphasize your performance, this means that you have a wall problem. And if status is important to you, if it's important to be rich, to be beautiful, anything connected to status, to own things that others think are status symbols, then it's also a potential problem, because status is what people who lack self-love emphasize and having high regard, because if you have self-love, you don't care about your status very much. And if you care about your status very much, this may mean that this is just compensating for your lack of self-love. So again, the wall of mirrors showing you back may lead you to really invest in your status, while you should really try to build self-love instead. Performance and status are boxes and cannot bring long-term happiness. You need joy and self-love for that. And not to sound too dark, mental health problems usually get better. So always have hope. If you look at other people's stories, you'll see people who have bounced back from unimaginable rock bottoms. So definitely everyone can do it. Everyone can improve. Seek help, size the chances, size your positive moments to make the most out of them, and you can definitely make it. A very good example of what can happen to your wall, if you have one, is the Berlin Wall, the symbol of division of boxes in the Cold War era, which stood for 30 years, and people thought that it will be there forever, that the world was so boxed into the two camps, the free world camp and the communist camp, that this war would never fall. And in the end, when people did a few fake it till you make it actions on different political levels, and in the end just everyone stopped believing that the war was so necessary, and it just fell in days. It was astonishing for both for Germans and the whole world how quickly the wall fell. You can read the history regarding the fall of the Berlin Wall. It's just amazing how quickly it happened. And progress in humans also happens in the same way. It's slow at once, and once you get going, once you get the flows back, it can happen very quickly that you destroy the boxes that stand in the way of your happiness and success. So I'm sure you're wondering, if the boxes get in the way of everything good in success, in happiness, why do we have boxes? Why don't we just live with the flows? And this is a very long story, but it's very important to understand the current situation. First, it started with evolution, but not with the evolution of humans, but with the first evolution that had a nervous system or anything that you could generously call a brain. So, what are the main goals for every creature? It has to reproduce, it has to eat, and it has to not be eaten. That's most of it. If you're just some snail in the sea or a worm, that's your main goals. And you have something resembling a brain. So reproduction is very different in different species, but eating and not being eaten is largely the same across all species. And the interesting thing is that in order to eat, you need to focus, find food, and then catch the food and eat it. It's a very focused process. Not being eaten is very different, because you can be eaten by a lot of different things, and when you move through your environment, the dangers change, and you also need to not be eaten while you eat, because this would really be bad for the reproduction of your genes. Getting eaten while eating is the end. You don't reproduce. So you need one part of the brain to find food, be focused, search and destroy the food. And you need another part of the brain to be aware of what's going on around you. And this part of the brain needs to be always active, even when you're searching for food and even while you're eating it. So even the most primitive creatures like worms and such, they have two halves of the nervous system, two halves of the brain. One half of the brain is the focusing part, the box part, and the other is the awareness, the intuitive part, the flow part. In humans, probably also in other creatures, the hemisphere that deals with the focus part, the box part, is the left hemisphere that controls our usually dominant right arm, right half of the body, and it controls the logic, the boxes, and it's involved with planning and all of the box things in life. The right part of the brain, which controls our left part of the body, it's about intuition, awareness, creativity, and it's all about flows. And these two parts are essential for every living being, and for early humans, they were also essential. Humans needed both, but everything that humans invent, every progress that humanity made, seemed to be coming from the boxes. Why is that? Because in order to make a fire, you need to plan how to make a fire, then you need to plan how to not let the rain put it out. And you have a lot of planning around survival. And humans were fighting for survival for a long time, and they evolved while fighting for survival. So they needed a lot of the box thinking to plan, to hunt, to search for food, search for shelter. And the box thinking was synonymous with the very slow progress that they made. Little by little, we learned how to use fire, how to use tools, and then slowly we learned agriculture and how to domesticate animals and all of that. And this was a mix of intuitive ideas and the box thinking that's involved with planning and experiments. But the boxes took all the credit, let's say, because if you look at human knowledge and how it piles up over generations, you cannot pass intuition over generations. It's something that it works, but you don't know how it works, so it's very hard to pass it. So over generations, intuition was passed between the shamans and other more spiritually, intuitively developed people, but most people passed down the generations the box thinking. Gradually, humanity developed a box thinking of its own. We developed a written world, and we started to develop a body of science and technology. And while boxes are bad for your own mental health, they are great for humanity, because this is the only way to store knowledge and wisdom as a whole in humanity. And so all of the science and technology and engineering, and that resulted in our very comfortable lives in Western countries, are thanks to the boxes. But not the boxes individually in someone's head, but the collective box knowledge that, thanks to the scientific method, prunes the bad ideas and the bad concepts and the wrong facts, and leaves only what is right, or at least what is as close as possible to the truth. So for humanity in general, boxes were invaluable, and they are still important. So if you can invent something that can change the lives of people, if you can cure a disease, if you can improve a technology, by all means, boxes are your way forward, because boxes are where you can cooperate with other people, where you can form teams. And for example, when humans sent people to the moon, 100,000 people worked on this project in one way or another. It was insanely complex, and there were a lot of challenges. And of course, intuition was important to solve these challenges, but there were an immense amount of boxes, cooperation between different people for those boxes, experiments, tests, so that nothing can go wrong in the end. And boxes are extremely important for the progress of humanity. And you can have boxes in our work, and if you are an engineer or an inventor or anyone who works with boxes, definitely boxes can be a large part of your life. But the average human doesn't need boxes that much, because a lot of the problems we have in life are solved by others, not by us. And a lot of the things that made the history of humanity very dangerous for the individual, things like disease, wars, violence of all kinds, these things are mostly fixed by the box systems that people create. We have the police to protect you from violence and the army to protect you from the violence of other nations. You have all of these structures set up to protect you. So the boxes that you had to have for protection in ancient times, you no longer need them. But there are a lot of boxes that we historically have, for example, in a very bad education system, which is very box-based, even though we don't need the boxes that much anymore. Because humans, they evolved fighting for survival, but nowadays they want freedom and happiness because survival is more or less guaranteed, at least in the Western countries. So now we are fighting for something that needs flows, but we have way too much boxes in the way of the flows. And this is really the main reason, the underlying reason why humans are not happy, why they are lonely, why there's a lot of mental health issues, because fighting for survival is actually good for mental health, because you're in hunter mode and you're fighting for survival. The soldiers that go to war, while they are at war, they're actually, a lot of them are having a good time, despite of all of the danger and all of the misery, because there's a big team effort, there's a community, and the mental health is holding their ground. But when they get back, there's no longer the sense of community. A lot of them have PTSD. Why? Because there's no longer the hunter mode associated with the big team effort at war. So actually it's after that they experience a lot of the mental health issues. And this clearly shows that fighting for survival, fighting in general for something, fighting for a purpose, is good for mental health. But in the modern life, if you work a shitty 9-to-5 job, you're not fighting for anything meaningful at this job. So there's no longer purpose, there's no longer meaning, and you just need flows. You need flows because otherwise the boxes, which with the modern life is extra full of, will just, they will take over your life. And the bad thing is that even if you have no predisposition to mental health issues like bad genetics, but if you have no meaning in life, no flows, but you have a ton of boxes, your job is full of boxes, your phone is a box full of boxes and all of that, and in the end all of the boxes can combine and you can end up anxious, depressed, and you end up with the wall, you end up with an actual bad mental health problem, just because you didn't find the small boxes and you let them unite into the big box, which is an actual mental health situation. And so it's very important to fight the boxes while they are small, to give every chance for the flows. And in this way, you're fighting this battle. It's a 24/7 battle, but it's the most important battle in your life, because if you win this battle, believe me, you automatically win all of the other battles. There's nothing that is not very strongly influenced by having flows and not having boxes you don't need. So to summarize, we need strong flow to destroy the boxes, but the boxes are in the way of the strong flows. So it's a chicken egg problem. How do you do it? This is the leap of faith you have to do with your first major flows. You just need to somehow jump. Just let go. Give up control over this process and let go. Letting go is a popular phrase, but there's a slight misunderstanding of how this works. People say, you have a bad job, let go. You have a bad relationship, let go. But the thing is that if you didn't have certain boxes in your head, you wouldn't be staying in a bad relationship in the first place. If you didn't have certain boxes, you wouldn't stay at a shitty job in the first place. You always find some way out. So the fact that you are in this situation already means that you have boxes and you need to work on the boxes. You should definitely quit the bad relationship and the bad job, but that's not the core of the problem. If you just leave the bad relationship and do nothing else, you just end in another bad relationship. If you leave the shitty job and don't change anything else, you just end up with another shitty job. So the boxes are really the thing that's controlling the outcome, and you need to let go not just of the situation, but the whole box that created it. And this is the real challenge of being able to be so self-aware and see deep, which is the box that resulted in this specific situation. And you need to let go of the whole box. And how do you let go of the box? You just embrace the flow that would destroy it. And any flow would actually help with any box, because flows are a part of you, so they help anywhere. So the practical part of this video and the huge I Grow Younger article that is the base for it is that any flow that you manage to bring into your life helps with all of the boxes. So if there's one universal advice, something that all people, regardless of genes, culture, absolutely anyone could follow in order to improve their lives, it's something that brings a flow into your life. But how can you bring flow, as flows are, let's say, impossible to control? There is a way how to plan your life for flows. And it's a very specific thing that you should do, and we'll get there. There's a very popular quote that I first heard about 10 years ago. The mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. The mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. I heard this quote from a mentor who was mentoring our startup. We have something organized by our investors. The mentor was from Google, from the tech bros. And first, I thought this was smart when I heard it. Saying, yeah, the mind is a terrible master because I cannot get myself to do shit. So the mind should be a terrible master. If it was a good master, I would be able to make myself do shit. Do my tasks and never miss deadlines and do like everything in my work properly in my startup. I was like, yeah, that's smart. And now, 10 years later, I can tell you that this is the biggest bullshit I have ever heard. This is everything that's wrong in this world is embedded in this quote. Because this is a quote that only someone who has no right brain active, that this right half of the brain is totally dominated by the left part of the brain and thinks that everything in the world is just tasks and goals, only such a mentally handicapped person can come up with this quote. And if this vibes with you, you're just as mentally handicapped because you're only using half your fucking brain if this vibes with you. Because this quote is not something that can ever result in happiness or meaning. It can only result in you achieving goal after goal and very likely still be miserable. Because with your brain hemisphere, the right one that is responsible for meaning, for intuition, for largely for the flows that bring happiness to your life, with this half dominated by the pushy left part that is always pushing ahead to the next goal, to the next thing you can search and destroy, there's no path forward. Even if you think that this is good for professional success, it's actually not, because intuition is extremely important for professional success. It's underrated because it's more invisible than the pushy, goal-oriented, search and destroy part. So this quote really shows how much is wrong with the world, how much is wrong with our education system, how much is wrong with the way we're brought up. We are in a world where our survival is not so much under question. Everyone can get an education, get a job, and not die out of hunger and disease, most likely. But our search for meaning and happiness is not in any way reflected in how the world and our education and our upbringing usually makes us. And there's nothing in our education system that really helps our right, intuitive, creative part of the brain to really shine and have its moments of much deserved dominance over the left part. And also, if you think that we need the two parts equally, you're wrong. We need actually the right part more. We need the right part more, the intuitive part. We need more because we evolved with the two parts developed more or less equally in a situation where if you didn't chase and trap and catch the bison or the mammoth, you're dying out of hunger the next winter. So the box thinking, the planning and the execution was crucial to the survival of not just the individual human, but to humanity as a whole. So we evolved in chasing the mammoths. And today you're not chasing mammoths. Your goals are not crucial to your survival. So you can allow yourself to fail. You can allow yourself to be much more fluid, to have a much slower learning curves, and everything is completely different. So, of course, the left part of our brain is still of tremendous importance to humanity, because that's where all of the mathematics and physics and technology and most of science and engineering, everything comes from there and makes our life better and more safe and comfortable. But for you individually, if you're not a scientist, if you're not one of the other box-based jobs, which are a minority, because most jobs would be better if done flow-based. Not that anyone is doing them like that, but it should be, ideally. If you're not one of those very special, I would not say professions, I would say purposes in life, then the boxes really don't have so much place in your life, because intuition is much more powerful, and it's also much less prone to error. It takes less energy from your brain. It's very seamless, and you could take a lot of your choices intuitively if you just let it happen, if you just stop dominating with logic, trying to dominate with logic everything. Just let go of the boxes, and things will likely improve a lot, both in your mental health and happiness, but also in your progress in life, in your financial situation, in your entrepreneurial journey, everywhere. But there's also something very important about the boxes. We need the flows. We love the flows. Everyone enjoys a flow when it happens. But if there is no flow at the moment in your life, all of your coping mechanisms are activated, and they are, guess what? Boxes. Every coping mechanism is a box. You feel some emptiness, some lack of flows, and what do? You get out your phone and you start playing a game, and it's amazing how many levels of boxes there may be in a person's phone. So the phone itself is a box. It's a literal box, a device. Then you go inside and you have box icons. Let's say you want to play a game and choose to play games, that's another box. And then, for example, your game is Candy Crush and it's literally made out of boxes. So it's amazing how many levels of boxes there may be in a phone. And this is why the phone is arguably the most unhealthy object in most people's lives. I keep my phone without internet connection. Unless I have to do something, then I turn it on and then I turn it off again. I have no social media on my phone and no chat of any kind, which is kind of annoying when you have to say you are late to the meeting and I have to bring out my laptop to send a text message. But the drawbacks are limited, and the gain that I have from not having the phone box control my life is just crazy. I think that if I was on my phone as much time as other people, my creative processes that I'm so happy about in the last years would have never happened, because the boxes really close the flows of creativity and innovation in, and that's it. So we cope with the boxes, but there are more healthy ways of coping, and if you are aware, mindful about your coping mechanisms, you can try to cope with flows. If you're alone in your home in the evening and you wonder what to do to feel better, just instead of your phone, porn, like TikTok and all of the other unhealthy box coping, you can just go out for a run in the park, which is flow coping. And once you do this, you still feel better, but it's also going to be more healthy. So, what's your first instinct that you should have? Resist the boxes. Every time the coping mechanism creeps up and you see that it's a box, just resist it. Don't do it. Just delay, destroy, do whatever tricks you can come out, but not bring your phone out. Don't enter the website that you know it's your rabbit hole and you just it's your coping box. Don't do addictive substances. Don't do alcohol. Try not to do any coping mechanism that is unhealthy, and try to do a healthy coping mechanism instead. The most healthy coping mechanisms are sports, dancing. It doesn't have to be active. It can be passive, like listening to good music or watching a movie. But if you want to listen to good music, just lie down and listen to it without thinking. Just relax and listen. If you want to go to a good movie, just don't bring your phone. Or if you have to bring it for some reason, just don't look at it. Try not to look at it. You can watch a whole movie without looking at your phone. This is every movie in my life I have ever watched. I never look at my phone. Why should I look at my phone while I'm watching a movie? Just to distract myself and put a small box into the beautiful flow of the movie. It doesn't make any sense. It just destroys your joy of the movie. So if you resist the boxes, then you open the space for the flows. It's that simple. Resist the boxes, and every time you see a chance for a win with inviting the flow into your life, even if for a short time, just do it. So always say yes to the flows and no to the boxes, and this way you will grow. You can look at all ancient wisdom. You can look at like the yogi Indian pillars of happiness or whatever. Everything that you look at that is time-tested advice. You can look at religions which, despite all of their drawbacks, still provide mental support for people and play their role in this regard throughout humanity. And if you look at all of this, you always find that people feel better because something helps them to get rid of the boxes and get a flow instead. So you need the flows. Flows may be chaotic, and this is always frightening because it brings change, but even then you need the flows. All of the good things for mental health are getting rid of some boxes, living in the present, getting rid of the boxes of the past, forgoing your ego, definitely getting rid of a lot of boxes connected to it. Not chasing dopamine experiences, definitely less boxes. Focus and give it all, less boxes. Like you're trying to make a flow out of your targeted effort when you focus. And the thing is that if you have to do 10 things there are boxes, but if you're doing one thing continuously and you dive deep into it, it becomes a flow. So your work can become a flow. Even if it's box-based, it can still become a flow. And there's an art of connecting your boxes into a single flow. And in our productivity video, we'll talk about this. But if you have no boxes in time, no waiting periods, no distractions, then even the box job can become a flow experience. You may have heard with a box versus flow categorization as finite and infinite games, especially if you are a fan of Simon Sinek, who popularized this narrative. A finite game is where you basically know everything, know the rules, know the players, know the goal of the game, know when the game ends, and most of the games that we know in life, like playing a literal game, PC game, board game, sports, mostly finite games. But infinite games is where you don't know who the players are, you don't know the rules, they are changing all the time, and there's no end to the game, and the goal of the game is to continue playing forever. And there are infinite games in life, in more complex areas, and your life itself is an infinite game. And this matches very closely the boxes versus flows concept. But if you cannot see everything as a finite or infinite game, you can just look at it as boxes versus flows. I think this is even more universal. And since in life, according to the I Grow Younger concept, you are fighting for long-term freedom. Long-term freedom is basically the ability to play the game forever. So our way of thinking and our end goal, which is to play the game forever, is flow-based, and it's very close to the infinite game. So the values in life are carried by the flows, and the flows, the central flows, are love, energy, creativity, curiosity, and unobstructed time. So just when you lose track of time, this is a flow in time. Nature is also a flow, and spirituality should be a flow in its perfect form. The boxes in our mind are categories, labels. Everything we call something a certain word, we put a box around it, the meaning that this word has to us. All of the goals in our life, the plans, and all of the time slots. That's why I don't like time blocking in productivity, although I'm absolutely aware that this increases productivity, but it has ripple effects in your life. And I believe strongly that if you have 7 meetings this day with at exact times, this sends the signal into your brain, your whole being, that you are going to be in box mode. So you're going to have stuff fixed, you're going to solve problems, but you're going to be like goal-oriented, let's say. You won't be intuitive today. And it's extremely important for almost all people to be more intuitive. So it's kind of a trade-off with doing the time blocking thing. Of course, if you have meetings, you have to do the time blocking. It's impossible because you have to match the availability of other people. But those people, including Cal Newport, which I'm a huge fan of, who say, okay, today I'm doing 4 hours of this, 4 hours of writing, and then let's say I do 2 hours of walk and I just think and do this and do that. I just cannot imagine my life. My life is now so intuitive and so flow-based that I really cannot imagine living like that by dividing my time into boxes. I only do this if I absolutely need to. So there are pros and cons, but I think if you're striving and if your job and the view of your future requires that you become more intuitive, I think that you should get time blocking and exact time slots to a minimum, and only do it when you have to interact with other people or events. But this is a controversial opinion because, of course, this will make you less productive. You will do less. So you're really making a bet that you will do less, but this less that you do, because of the more intuition and creativity that you will be able maybe to put into it, it will be worth more. But we never know. So time slots are boxes that can be helpful, but at least be a little suspicious of what they do to your intuitive growth. The boxes we live in, so a lot of the houses, the apartments, the rooms, everything is boxes, and all rules and dogma are also boxes, and numbers are boxes. I'm especially averse to goals that require certain amounts of money or anything that's a number, because your life is not a factory. The factory can say, okay, we want to produce 1,000 widgets today and grow our widget production by this much, this month, this year, but your life is not a factory. The factory can only achieve the possible to produce a number of widgets. You can achieve what you think is impossible if you lean into your intuition and creativity. Here are a few examples of boxes versus flows in real life. Intuition is a flow process. It's powerful and it's very harmless. It doesn't take energy and it's very rarely wrong. And logical thinking is a box process. It's very tiring and it's prone to errors. If you don't believe me, just check the list of mental fallacies in Wikipedia. It's endless. And logical thinking is potentially harmful to mental health because it fills our mind with boxes. It may generate a story that then becomes part of our identity, and this story can be harmful to us. If you wonder how it's possible for logical thinking to harm us, this is how it happens. You create a story. Let's say the story is I'm incapable of success, and if this story becomes part of your identity, guess what? You are now truly incapable of success, just because you find some logical reason why you failed before, and you, using logic and using your past, you destroyed part of your future by thinking this. So this is what happens in the minds of many people. They make up a story, they do justification, it's a box thing, left brain thing, and in the end they harm their chances in the future because of something that happened in the past. In the future are not so connected at all. And if you have a past of failure, you should not connect it to your future. You should disconnect. You should just forget that you failed, because this will increase the chances of your future success. Entrepreneurship is a very flow thing. You do a lot of different things. There's little certainty. There's no oversight. Basically, you decide what to do. There's no oversight. There's no monitoring. There's no business rules to abide to, as it's in companies. So you can do anything. You can do any business, any niche, any business model. You can hire anyone. It's the possible paths are infinite, so it's a flow process. A day job, on the other hand, most day jobs are very boxy. The company has rules. You work from 9 to 5 in a certain place. Usually you do a specific thing in specific rules, and you have a boss and their own boss, and all of the bosses up to the CEO. You need to abide by the rules they set. So basically, first the workplace is a dictatorship. So that you have no say against your boss. You are at the mercy at your boss, and your boss might be great. They may be amazing. They may help you grow and develop, but they can also be terrible, and you have no control over who your boss is. So most day jobs are a box, and a box full of other boxes. And according to some polls, work is the number one reason for unhappiness. So problems at work, problems like a bad team or horrible boss, is the number one reason for unhappiness in humans, in Western societies. So more than love problems, more than other things, work in a survey was the number one reason for unhappiness. And of course, this is because of the bad boxes at work. The boxes versus flow thing is very important if you look at the modern culture wars. So if you look at left versus right, and if you look at a lot of things that are labeled between the left and the right, especially in the US, if you look at the woke label and the far right label and all of these boxes, and how people put other people in boxes by labeling them, and then it ends up being very tribal. My political leanings are to the left, but I can see that the progressive left, the woke, social justice movement, they have good aspirations, but they put a lot of aspirations in a box, which result in the whole thing actually being counterproductive. If you listen to progressives of old, if you listen to, let's say, I Have a Dream speech by Dr. Martin Luther King, you hear incredible flow language. You hear something that motivated, before the age of social media, hundreds of thousands of people to gather, including white people, to gather and listen to his I Have a Dream speech in Washington. And if you listen to the speech, you will hear why it's just a joy to listen to. It's flow language. I'll read you something from the speech. Satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. So this is the language that Dr. Martin Luther King used to inspire people. So this is absolute flow language. And because of this, he managed to get, of course, the black population of the US was severely disadvantaged, and it needed allies. It needed not an us versus them divide, but it needed white people to become allies, so the segregation can be ended and things for black people to improve. And his language was a language of unity, a flow language. He didn't use labels unless he absolutely had to, and he tried to be a uniting force and use such language. And this is how change actually happens. Social change happens when there's a leader, a selfless leader who uses flow language and uses a language that everyone understands, that everyone can agree on, and doesn't try to overcomplicate anything. While if you look at the modern social justice warriors, you see a lot of the things that come from postmodernism. You see overcomplicated language, you see a ton of labels that normal people don't understand. And in things such as the huge discussion about gender pronouns, you see way too many emphasis on categories, on labels, which is definitely not a healthy thing for anyone's mental health. If you can become offended because of a label that was not used with any bad intent, then I'm really not sure if the problem is the one who used the label or the ammunition, as Gabor Mate says, that you're holding you, that you're ready to be offended from anything. So if we want good social change and good mental health for people who are from minorities or underprivileged groups, they absolutely should strive for this, but the flows of respect and tolerance are, I think, the ways to get there, and not the modern approach of blame, of labeling, and of boxes. I think that really there was a wrong turn somewhere. I don't blame anyone in particular or even a group. This was something that happened on, like, when there's a political movement, there's always a strive for people to shine, and there are Darwinistic forces at play, like a fight for influence, let's say, and more fringe people, more extreme people often get hold of the movement. This has happened to many movements in history, and in this case, the people who are in the social justice movement, they are people who don't value the power of flows over boxes. And I think this is why this movement is dividing people instead of uniting them. And I think this is a great example of how this individual struggles between the boxes and flows, which hemisphere of the brain actually governs us. They propagate through every social level and in the end become our culture, along with other things. So it's very important, not just for you, but also for your group, for society, for the world, for you to embrace the flows, because this is what the world needs now. There are some interesting structures where boxes and flows somehow share a space. Stories are very interesting. A story is just a sequence of events, so it's like made out of boxes, but it's a flow because the sequence of events turns into one monolithic flow. And this is why stories are so powerful, because it's a flow, it's made of boxes. We love flow, so we open up, but then all of the boxes come in along with the flow. So stories can and are often used to manipulate people, because everyone opens up to flows. We love flows, and when you open yourself up, you get the boxes of the story. And if you don't have critical thinking developed, you don't question these boxes later. I think the right approach is not to be close to stories, because you're closing yourself to good and bad ideas, to good and to true and false information. So if you just become 100% skeptical and say, oh, I don't believe any stories. This is not rational, and it's probably not also good for mental health to be so distrustful. It's good to be open to stories. It's good to listen and hear different points of view. But then once the story, the flow of the story dissolves into your brain and turns into its constituent boxes, you really have to analyze, is this really true? Am I being fed some bullshit here? And this is what a lot of modern people don't have, because we don't teach it in schools or anywhere. You have to come up with critical thinking, basically from scratch, learning from scratch, which some people manage to do at some point of their lives, but other people don't. And critical thinking is extremely important, so as the boxes that come via stories in our brain, so then we can later destroy them if they are false. True love, or how I like to call it, higher love, so the opposite of transactional love, which is I want things for myself and changing the things I'm giving. Higher love is just about giving, so you don't care what you receive in return. True higher love is very powerful and magical, because it is a trick of turning a box, a very beautiful box, a person that you love, and you turn it into a flow, because the person becomes a part of you, and you carry the feeling of that this person brings everywhere with you. So what happens is that you start with a box, another person, and then you get a powerful flow that you keep all of the time, and you keep it everywhere. And this is not just beautiful and very nice, pleasurable, but also it's very motivating. It gives a lot of energy. Like you become this Superman, Superwoman. Like you have superpowers that affect all of your life. Change becomes much easier. You are not so susceptible to inertia. You become hunter mode just becomes a part of you, wherein you're in this state because this feeling reduces your fears a lot. It's just a biological thing. So higher love is a very powerful flow. So it's really, really great if you can achieve it, even if it's not returned by the other person. And money is really interesting, because money is a flow. Like each individual sum of money is a box. So $1,000 is a box, but money in general is a flow. And it's a flow that facilitates our exchange of boxes. Money works so well exactly because it is a flow. And I am actually a fan of money. I never hide it. And money is a great flow because it can be exchanged for other flows, like freedom. So with money, cannot buy a lot of things, but you can destroy boxes that you don't like, and you can improve your freedom. For example, you don't like to shop. Shop is a box, and you go there shopping for other boxes. Not the best experience for most people. So with money, you can hire someone to shop for you. You can hire an assistant, and then you get rid of some boxes in your life. So money can help you increase your freedom, reduce boxes, and it's definitely worth striving for money if you have nothing more motivating to do in your life. So if you have no love to fight for, no purpose or meaning to fight for at the moment, there's absolutely nothing bad about just trying to get rich. Absolutely no problem. This is a flow thing. You just never tell yourself how rich you want to be. Because if you say, okay, I want $1 million, after you get $1 million, you'll be like, that wasn't so special. Now I want 2 million. Then after you get to 2 million, you say, not so special. Let me get more. And in the end, you just get tied. Your happiness gets tied to achieving or not achieving these goals. And what will happen if you have a bad year in business and you drop from 10 to 7 million of net worth? You'll say, fuck, my net worth is dropping, it's the end of the world. You'll be miserable as fuck. But you still have 7 million. So this means that you get detached from reality if you tie your your happiness to dumps of money. But if you tie your happiness to doing your best to earn money in future freedom, that's not bad, not in any way. And you don't need special goals. I'll earn this much money, because goals of this kind, number goals, they only increase your grinding power, but they decrease your creative power. If your goal is $1 million, you automatically dismiss the ideas that could bring, say, 10 million, because you are after 1 million, not 10 million. And that's a problem. You're limiting yourself with the goals. So money is good. Quantities of money as goals, not so much. And our long-term success, which we measure in long-term freedom, the infinite game, is a flow, definitely. And long-term happiness, which is like a flow, a way of life rather than some goals and achievement, is also a flow. And there are not any individual events, boxes, that can by themselves sustain long-term happiness. So I hope I convinced you that flows are the right thing and boxes just get in the way, and you need to reduce the boxes. How do you do this? How? This is the how video. All of the other videos in this channel are about understand this, understand that, build intuition. If you are a direct, more dominant person and just want to know what to do and do it, you want a direct path to achieving something, this is your video. It's the how video. So first, in order to construct the best environment and being able to tell the box from a flow, resist the boxes and embrace the flows, you need two simple principles. Everything in your life that can be a flow, better be a flow. Every box you can remove from your life and your mind, remember, and your mind, otherwise it's going to be replaced by another box of the same type if you don't remove it from your mind, just remove it. And you only accept boxes when they serve a specific short-term, always short-term purpose as part of the process. So you don't do labels unless you need them for a process. You don't do goals unless you need them for a process. You don't do plans unless needed for a process. And you don't do rules in your company if the people there are sane and well-meaning and basic ethics are working. Your life is one whole. Your love, meaning, friends, fun, work can all mix together as flows. As long as there are flows mixing together, and there will be inconveniences when you mix stuff together, but the thing you win is just immense compared to what you lose. Because what is the other option? Fucking mentally dividing yourself into pieces? Like, who would think this is a good idea to say, okay, I work 9 to 5 and then at 6 I go home and that is the other part of my life? Well, this means that you accept that one part of your life and the other. So you're gonna have a bad part of your life. Why? You can have only good parts of your life. And the more you interconnect them, the better they become. And also, if you think in terms of flows, you will realize that everyone on Earth is more or less on the same boat. As Marshall McLuhan said, there are no passengers or spaceship Earth. We are all crew, which means that you will also be very valuable to the world in being more united. We have challenges connected to the environment and climate that should be challenges that unite people, not divide them. And the more you think in flows and the less boxes you have, the more like uniting vision you will be able to have. So how do you restore the flows in your life if you don't have any or enough flows? How do you know just how much boxes or flows dominate your life? Like, for each individual thing, it's very easy to tell, but for your life as a whole, it may be a bit difficult to really see where the flows are getting or where the boxes are blocking them. But there is a very good question, and it's a flow-based question, and it's how much do you care if I'm right? If you care if you're right, then it's a myth. If you don't care if you're right, it's a flow. And this question you can ask about everything, and you generally have this feeling of how much do you care if you're right, like not about anything in particular, but in general, like from 1 to 10 scale, regarding your whole life, how much do you care if you're right? If you don't care if you're right or wrong, you have successfully embraced the flaws. But if you care about being right, and even worse, if that's the most important thing that you do, then you have problems with too many boxes and you have problems with the flaws. In the DISC, DISC differentiation, which is often used professionally about different characters and working styles, conscientious people, the C's, they are the most box people. They like stuff like Excel spreadsheets and other weird stuff. They like clear rules, processes for everything, and these are the people that mostly care about being right. Actually, this is the definitive characteristic of the conscientious people. They mostly care about being right. So, especially if you are this type conscientious person, keep in mind that you may have serious obstacles to better mental health because you care that you are right too much. I am naturally partially a conscientious person, and I have done a lot of targeted effort to literally erase this part of my personality because it's not something that helps if you're running a business. Like if you're an employee, if you're not the one who makes the vision, but if you're one who implements it, then definitely there's value in being conscientious, detail-oriented, and the boxes and the processes have their value. But if you're running a business, you have no job being conscientious. You need to have vision, you need to have intuition, and these are on the further side from the conscientious box-based thing. So, and consequently, I don't give a fuck about being right. Most people are somewhere in the middle. They care about being right, but not too much. And this is something which you can use to measure your progress with the flows. If you don't care if you're being right, then you're progressing. We cannot talk about boxes and flows without also talking about hunter versus sheep mode. So, what's the difference? Is it not the same thing? Well, not exactly. Because hunter versus sheep is a biological thing. It's literally tied to the hormones and other substances that your body makes to make you basically do or not do stuff, do different stuff. So, and the hunter and the sheep mode is a biological thing that's happening in your body, not in your brain. So also in your brain, of course, but the body, the way you feel, the vibe that you feel, the hormones in your body is the hunter versus sheep. Flow versus box thinking is about the two hemispheres of the brain, so it's not exactly the same thing. But there is very strong correlation, and this here is how this correlation forms. Every time that you are in a hunter versus sheep battle for a decision, the chemical battle, one of them wins, and you either usually do something the hunter way or don't do something, overthink, and get stuck in inertia like the sheep way. And if you are in hunter mode, you're being more fluid, more intuitive, and you don't have the boxes of the fears that stand in your way. So if the hunter wins a hunter versus sheep battle, what happens is that the action that you make leaves a small imprint in the brain about whether you did a box thing or a flow thing. And because the hunter more often does flow things than the sheep, if you did a lot of hunter actions in your life, they get imprinted into your brain and they stimulate the right hemisphere and give signals that it has the right to exist and be dominant for certain parts of time. And every time that you make like a sheep move, you close in, you box yourself in, you give power to the left part of the brain. You give time and space to generate excuses, to overthink why this happened, why that happened, and you give a signal to your brain that the boxes are more important. So you're a hunter, let's say you make 10 consecutive hunter moves, only the actions matter, because thoughts are dime a dozen, like you're thinking all the time, but the actions really leave things here, leave imprints in your brain. So when you make 10 consecutive hunter actions, you're reducing fears, and you're becoming less trapped by the boxes, and you're leaving signals in your brain. You're strengthening the neural connections for flows. And when you do a lot of, then let's say something happens, you don't react properly, you react in a sheep way, then you get into sheep mode, and then you do 7 consecutive sheep actions, but mostly not doing anything but overthinking and just closing in. And then you're strengthening the neural pathways of the box part of your brain. So it's very connected. It's not that it's always sure that if you're in hunter, you're thinking in flows, and if you're in sheep mode, you're thinking in boxes. It's often the case, but the reason why this happens is mostly because of these historical imprints and strengthening the neural connections. So when we ask the critical question, how much do I care if I'm right? You can answer in 2 ways. You can answer with your heart, and you can answer with your brain. If you answer with your heart, with your body, then you get the answer, am I hunter mode? Am I in sheep mode? Because you answered with your body about how you feel. But if you answer with your mind, it doesn't matter. The answer doesn't matter. But depending on the answer, you will figure out which hemisphere of your brain answers this. Because if the answer is something like, I care exactly this much, then you get the answer from the logical, the left hemisphere. If the answer is like, the fuck is even this question, then the answer came from the flow part of the brain, the right part. So this question will help you really monitor your progress with the flows. And this question will help you monitor your progress with the flows. And regardless of the subtle differences, usually to simplify, you're either in hunter mode and you have access to the flow thinking. Of course, you also have access to the box thinking if you need it for a specific task, but you're not ruled by the boxes and you still have access to the flows. That's the important thing. And the other, this is the good option, and the bad option is if you have sheep mode and box thinking, which is unfortunately the condition of most human beings most of the time. And these are your potential states. And of course, for happiness and progress, you need hunter mode and flow thinking. So how do we construct the best environment with what we already know about flows and boxes? We need to know how a human functions in general. Then we need to know how you're different from other humans. And then we need to know all of the options that the world offers, including the box options, and if there are any flow options. So, how humans work in general. Humans share more than 99% of our genes, so we are actually pretty similar. We emphasize our differences because there are points of pride, points of worry, points of conflict, but in general, the basics of a human being are largely the same. We all have our very similar genetic programming. It's a tiny bit different between men and women, and also can probably vary due to the small different part of genetic factors. But we're talking here about the basis, the boxes versus flow, which is the basis of almost anything else. So here we'll largely assume that people are very much alike in this regard. And what can we say that applies to all humans? First, definitely humans evolved to live in nature and not in boxes. No brainer. Humans are meant to move a lot. Again, no brainer, which makes sports, walks and all of this extremely beneficial. And if you do sports, you can do 2 kinds of sports. I call them fun sports where you're chasing something like a ball, where there's a lot of dopamine, like getting the ball into the right place, like football, tennis, all of these sports. And then you can have boring sports like running, swimming. So boring sports are definitely boring, but they are still a flow like all sports. So they can be very beneficial to mental health, but more meditative kind of way than in the dopamine-inducing, happiness-creating kind of way. So all sports have their value. Team sports especially are very, very beneficial because you have, especially the team is very tight and people feel close. You have a lot of this serotonin going around when you score a goal and then go all hugging each other. There's a lot of amazing benefits from team sports, especially team sports for girls are very important because most of the boys grow up playing team sports, but actually few girls grow up playing team sports because girls don't play football and just may not be so much into sports, but it's very important for girls to play team sports for mental health. Humans are social creatures and need socializing in person. This is just period, no matter introvert, extrovert, it just depends on your preferences of how to do it, but you need socializing. It's not psychology, this is biology, absolute biology. People without socializing immediately get worse mental and physical health, not just mental. And screen socializing is of partial value. So it has some value. If you cannot go to the other side of the world to see your loved ones, socialize on screen, it's surely better than nothing. But what you can do in person is still better. All humans are easily influenced by their peers. It's very rare to find someone who is truly resistant, and it can only be to a degree of the influence that other people have on them. We are all very easily influenced social creatures. The opinion of other people is important to us, and our growth in life is absolutely dependent on having a good environment of people, which means if you don't have enough great people in your life, people who care about you, people who fight for your freedom as it was theirs, people who will not constrain you into their models and boxes. If you don't have enough such people in your life, tirelessly search for more. And if you have toxic people in your life, people who have this box vision of you and will not support you growing, changing, and fighting for your freedom, just kick them out of your life, if possible. You have no moral obligation to anyone in your life except your kids and your pets. If your parents are toxic, you can kick them out of your life. If your siblings are toxic, you can kick them out of your life. But you have no obligation to toxic people whatsoever. Being in the life of a toxic person and making your life toxic too because of them is a net loss to you and to humanity. And you're not helping the toxic person by staying around and getting influenced by them. So the only people you actually have some actual real responsibility to are your kids and your pets, because they are not capable to fend for themselves if you just kick them out. So that's the difference. Grown-up people, they can take care of themselves. So if they're toxic, you can just show them the door. Or if it's their home, you can show yourself the door, but not be around toxic people. To summarize, healthy grown-ups have to earn each other's attention by not being assholes. You can quote me on this. So, and no human relation should be taken for granted. So, how about the criteria for our new peers? Well, how do you know that we find a true good new friend, for example? You can make a box checklist for this, but let's use the flow language instead and use this great simplification. If you can be yourself around someone and are happy in silence with them, then it's a worthy friendship or relationship. And it turns out it's that simple. If you don't feel pressured to put a mask to be someone else and you can be yourself, then this is a really truly good relationship. No matter if it's a friendship or romantic relationship. That's it. According to the longest and still ongoing study of human happiness that they made in Harvard University, and that's been going, I think, for over 70 years. The quality of your human relationships, and mostly your closest human relationships, is the most important indicator for health and happiness. Also, regarding the influence of people over people. People influence each other emotionally, mostly, of course, but they also influence each other intellectually. If your friend believes in these crazy conspiracy theories and will not shut up over them, then you should seriously consider parting ways, or at least increasing the distance in this friendship. Because you may decide, okay, well, I know the more or less the truth about the world. I'm not influenced by conspiracy theories. I'm good in critical thinking, and this danger does not apply to me. But you are underestimating the energy it takes to block this bullshit so it doesn't enter your mind. Because to not believe in a conspiracy theory fully is easy, but to not be slightly influenced by it in some direction is actually hard. And to do this second hard thing, you need a lot of energy to constantly remind yourself that there is nothing true about this. So if you are subjected to crazy, clearly false conspiracy theories, we're not talking debatable things here, we're talking like flat earther stuff, then you should seriously consider just ditching all of this shit, because you'd have no idea how much this takes from your mental energy to block, actually. And this is a problem for your intuition about intellectual stuff, about the truth in the world. I have examples from my own life about this. Everyone is a bit influenced. It's very hard to block everything, just that's not how we work. So, now that we have some agreement about what is valid for all people, let's see how you're different from other humans. This is the part where I can help the least, because you know you and I don't know you, obviously. But here are a few pieces of advice to get to know yourself better over time. The first is observe, but don't rush to judgment. So, more or less be mindful about your experiences and don't try to logically analyze them before they have settled down in time and all of the emotions are no longer there. Because emotions and logic is the worst combination ever. So if you're emotional about something that just happens and you try to analyze it logically, you will fail. 100%. It's impossible to be emotional about something truly emotional and having sound logic. It's actually hard to do sound logic anyway, because as we said, the logical part of the brain is new and weak. But when you're emotional, it's even harder. So just leave it to settle down, and in time you have intuition about what truly happened and how it could have been different and all of that, and how you can improve for the future, but just don't rush to judgment. That's very important about analyzing yourself. Second, the diversity of experience is very important. Okay, we all learn from experience. If you don't rush to judgment and are self-aware, you will learn more and get to the right conclusions. But if you have 1 or 2 meaningful experiences a year and your life is extremely boring, you will learn less than an entrepreneur who this year founded 3 companies, hired 40 people, had to fire 20 and travel to 20 different countries to talk to really advanced, like-minded people. There's no comparison. You need diversity of experience. If you want to grow in life, speed of growth will be proportional to your diversity of experience. So this means do different things every day. This is in direct conflict with the life of people who have a day job, and this is why the day job is not great for long-term experience and intuition, unless, of course, your day job offers larger degrees of freedom, which is something that we try to do in our company. In our company, everyone can come to me or to their manager and say, I don't feel happy in this role. Can I change my role? Can I change my department? Can I change what I do? And we try to grant all of these wishes because everyone First, of course, we care about our people and for them to be happy, but also a happy worker is a good worker. So definitely worth the inconvenience of moving people around if it will make them more happy. There are people in our company who have been with the company from 5 or 6 years and have already done 4 or 5 or 6 different core tasks. So they change their core task, let's say every year or so, because they want something new and we train them to do something new. Diversity of experience, of course, can go overboard. There are a lot of people who are very driven, very ambitious. They can take much more than they can handle on their plate. So if it feels so much, too much that it's no longer fun, then probably you have too much. If you feel it's too much, but it's still fun trying to get everything to work and solve all of these challenges, then probably you're just fine. Probably won't achieve everything you want in all of your endeavors, but it's still worth fighting for. When it's no longer fun, it's too much. You need to start abandoning. And if it's too much and you need to start abandoning, abandon right now before you get to some burnout, because people have trouble with abandoning often. Then you need to shield yourself from harmful distortion about who you are. You can take external feedback on your behavior, on your actions, for what is the word to see, but never let people, unless of course they are your therapist or someone who both knows what they do and is really well-meaning to you, like a relative or very close friend or your partner, but definitely only if they have high emotional intelligence. Don't let, in any other cases, anyone else tell you what you're thinking. This is gaslighting. It's extremely dangerous for your identity. And if you see any signals of this, you should leave this relationship immediately, because it's other people, unless it's your therapist or these very limited cases, have no business poking around your mind and telling you what they see there, because they are not inside your head and they cannot fucking see anything. They see your actions, your behavior, which is kind of a result of your thoughts, but also a result of your environment and on other things, and you cannot go backwards and say, you did this, so you must be thinking that. Definitely not the way it works. So beware of gaslighting. Your story is yours to write. Intruders are not welcome. And finally, genetics. The brain is quite adaptive. There are some traits that are genetic. Everyone can learn anything to a certain level. Everyone can train themselves to be good at things with the proper training and the proper motivation. If they feel that it is their purpose, people can become quite good. But what you cannot change is what feels natural. It will always feel more natural to do some things instead of others. For example, I am naturally, genetically a bit introverted. I like to go to cinemas alone, to watch movies alone, for example, which is a typical introvert thing to do. But in my behavior, I'm quite extroverted. I talk to a lot of people. I'm quite social. I go to a lot of events, conferences where I can have 10 nights of drinking and partying with friends from the event in a row. It's not exhausting for me. But still, when I have to talk to a stranger about something, it doesn't seem natural. I will do it if I have to advance my business, but it doesn't feel natural as it would feel for someone who is more extroverted and more doesn't have any barriers to people. So what feels natural is genetic, and there are genetic traits about, let's say, how our senses work. There is a thing called highly sensitive people, which just means that you take a lot more through your senses and you need time to process all of this information, which makes you slow to start and kind of a more observing person than doing person. So highly sensitive people, which are, I think, about 20 or 30% of the population, something like that. There's a test, if you Google highly sensitive people, there's a test online which you can do. I'm not a highly sensitive person, but I know a lot of highly sensitive people, and you can actually tell by their behavior, usually, that they're highly sensitive. Highly sensitive people are the ones who need to observe a situation before they dive in, because they collect the situation in a lot of detail. So they need time to observe, to process, to dive deep, and then they dive in the situation. And it's not a hunter or sheep thing, it's just how they do stuff. It's genetic, and it's connected to how the brain absorbs all of the information that our senses bring us. And the highly sensitive people have a lot of potential to dive into some amazing details and do deep work, but often in everyday life they have problems with, let's say, loud sounds, or like anything that is crowding the senses is a problem for highly sensitive people. So bright lights or flashes or sounds, or like party where everyone is talking to everyone and there's just a mesh of voices. These things are very disturbing to highly sensitive people. And if you're a highly sensitive person, you should definitely be aware of that and adjust your life accordingly. It's not a drawback in any case, it just means you're a little different. This is a typical example of a genetic trait that can influence life a lot, and there are such traits. This is, I think, the most important one that is ignored in society, but I'm sure there are also others. So, we know humans, we gave you some points to know everything you can about yourself, and now the world. How do we really know everything that's happening in the world, and also somehow do it intuitively? Like, how can we have a feeling about the world? How can we have the awareness? Because the awareness of the world is a flow thing. It comes from the right hemisphere of the brain. And there's kind of a chicken egg problem again, which is, let's say we don't have a lot of flows in life, or we don't have any flows. That is the situation with many people. We need flows, but we cannot generate the flows ourselves because they are unplannable. So we need to somehow find situation in the world to generate the flows. But without having a flow, the right brain is a bit undeveloped, and our intuition is a bit undeveloped, and we don't have the awareness to see the flows around. And it's again the chicken egg problem with the flows and the boxes, that instead we have boxes and they get in our way, and we go and search for box experience in life, very often dopamine chasing experiences, like getting up our phone and doing something on the phone. And how do we turn this around? If you have zero flows, or the family is your only flow in life, which is also the case for a lot of people, so they have a family, they love each other, that's all great, but they have no sense of purpose outside of the family. And the family cannot be your purpose in life, because it's not you, it's other people. They may be your closest ones, but it's other people. So you be a part of their life, but you cannot directly change their life. It's their life. Even in parenting, where you take complete care of a small kid, the kid will grow up, and if you provide the basic care to the kid, like good food, shelter, physical care, love, affection, all of that, and if you teach the kid better maths or English or whatever, will have like 0.1% influence on their lives. They will go their own ways, then they will go through a lot of twists and turns in their life, and a lot of what will happen with them is genetic, which can be proven with studies with identical twins that grew up in different families, and still their lives were largely similar. So genetics plays a big part in anyone, and you cannot influence their genes. You can completely prevent their environment, but you cannot influence their genes. So even for your family, you can only at best do half the job by helping them. The rest is not in your hands. So with so much not in your hands, it's very high pressure to make family your only purpose in life. And it's definitely healthy for mental health to have another purpose, which you can combine with your family. The other purpose can be your job if you love it, or your business if you're entrepreneurship, or your general purpose, meaning something, some way in which you're trying to make the world a better place. And it's great to have at least one non-family flow. So what to do if you don't have any? The problem is that when you don't have any big flow, there's nothing to destroy the boxes in your life. And the process of searching for a flow cannot be constructed because flows just come and go. Like today you're just sitting on the couch and tomorrow just the motivation flow hits you in the head with a brick and you just become super motivated and start doing stuff with your life. It's how it happens with all people. It's very hard to externally motivate yourself. Yeah, you can go to seminars and stuff, but it can work or not work. It's not really plannable. You can stimulate it, you can give yourself space, you can give yourself time, but motivation, creativity, and love just they come and go as they wish most. So if they are not plannable, what can we do? The thing is that there is a specific solution. To explain how this solution works, let's imagine a forest. Let's say you live next to a mountain, and the mountain have forests. These forests are safe. There are no bandits. There are no dangerous wild animals. It's just forests, like trees and shrubs, and there are some pets here and there, but there's a lot of forest patches with no pets where you can just go and get lost. Now, if you get into a forest, leave all the pets and just wander around and get lost into the forest, what happens in terms of the structures we discuss? So the forest is a box. It's an area of land, so it's definitely a box. You can plan to go there. If you decide, you can go there right now, right after the video. You can go into a forest, which is plannable. It's a box thing. And when you get lost into the forest, there are no more boxes. Just you, the trees, the shrubs, birds chirping. And so what happens then? You need to find your way back. But there are no pets. There are no pets around. So it's just you, the ground, the trees. There are no boxes. You literally just left all of the boxes in your life behind. You're in a forest and you have to find your way back. So you generated a flow. How did you generate the flow? You found a box that has no smaller boxes inside. It's not like your phone and then the icons and then the games and then Candy Crush and then the boxes in Candy Crush. The forest box has no boxes inside. It just has flows. You can wander left and right, and it only flows. So these boxes are special. Life has, it turns out, these boxes that don't contain other boxes inside, but only flows. And the great thing is that you can plan, go into such a box, and then there's no going back. If you want, stay in the forest forever, your choice. So eventually you want to come back to civilization, and when you come back, you have to search for the way, wander into the forest, and you will be doing flow activity with no choice. That's why I Grow Younger article that this video is based on starts with a quote from Alex Hormozy, who I really like for his business advice, although he is a bit more box-based than I like, just probably the person who he is, but he has a very great line of advice which says, you cannot imagine what you can achieve when you give yourself no choice. So you may be the most scared, anti-flow person out there with life full of boxes. You can have a wall in your life, like you can be depressed. If you get lost in the forest, your ancient self-preserving mechanism kick in, your adrenaline kicks in, and you will find your way back, and you will do it in a flow manner, because this situation does not provide any box manner to solve the situation. When you do this, it's a flow, and when it's a flow, it helps with all of your boxes. So unless in some very, very specific case where you have such strong anxiety that you will have a panic attack in the forest and it will cause additional problems, in all other cases, the forest is your friend. You can go into the forest, and the forest is so nice to give you back a flow. And this model, you should remember it, because this is the model of all of the conscious improvement that you can do in your life strategically. Every strategic thing that really will improve your life has the exact same structure of planning a box, going into the box, then turns out into the box there are only flows. Let's say you're having a lonely evening at home, but then you plan, you buy a ticket for the cinema, you go to the movies, you watch a movie, doesn't matter if alone or with someone else, and you get a flow experience. Why? Because in the cinema there's a movie, there are flows, and especially if you don't look at your phone, you're getting a flow experience. It's not the best flow experience because it's passive flow experience. You're just watching, you're not doing something flow-based, but it's still very valuable if your life is dominated by the boxes. It's a great first step. So you can do the movie thing, you can do the forest thing, and everything has this structure. Like you go somewhere and it turns out to a party, it turns out that there's music, people are dancing. At the beginning you're like, well, I don't feel like dancing that much, you're feeling stiff, you're just watching the other people dance. But then gradually you just start moving, and once you start dancing, you don't want to stop dancing. Why? Because to start dancing was the box thing, but then you're in the flow state where you just want to continue dancing. And this is how it's always working the same way. In everything that has real meaningful effect in your life, it's always working the same way. Just initial effort that you can plan, and then you end up in the flow state. So probably know this, like it's no secret. You have been dancing before, you have went to movies before. What is the real innovation that we have here? The real innovation is that there's an upgraded version of this, and we're gonna talk about this. I call all of these structures forests, to be simple, after the first example, and I name these ones unpopular forests. You'll see why. So, to summarize, usually in life, flows create more flows and boxes create more boxes. So the ability to plan to do something boxy and create a flow is breaking this model, and is the only path to strategical progress. So the forest forces into flow. So what knowledge do you need of the world? Remember, we started by what do you need to know about the world to support building the best environment for you to support this construction. You need to know all of the forests that the world supports. So you don't need to understand the entire world, you need just to understand the forests. And we divide them into two kinds, popular forests and unpopular forests. So the popular forests are things like sports, dancing. Where you go somewhere, you have to invest time and sometimes money. You need some box thinking to plan, and then you go there, you run, you dance, and you have a flow experience. So this is great, definitely helpful, and dancing especially is the best popular forest because it's impossible to be unhappy while you're dancing. Dancing is really, really great, and everyone agrees on that. Like in all cultures, they have dance, and really dancing is precious. If for some reason you have never tried dancing, because I'm sure that there are such people, you should try it. Just try it. If you're too shy, try it alone at home. You just enjoy it a lot. Dancing is amazing. And still there is something better, which is how to turn your whole life into a dance somehow. Because dancing gives a lot, but you cannot dance all the time. So how to turn all of your life into a dance in space, into a dance in time, and how to add one more thing that you don't have in dancing, which is the perception of physical danger. Now, why would the perception of physical danger be anything helpful or so important? The thing is that, let's get back to the movie example. You feel like shit, but you get your strength and you buy online a ticket to the movies, and you're gonna have a flow evening watching a movie. You use a peak in your, let's say, hunter mode to buy the ticket, then you don't want to waste $10, so you go out of your home, you already feel better about yourself that you did something with your evening, you want to watch a movie, and then you get to the movie, you're feeling better, but the boxes creep in. After half an hour in the movie, you have this thought, why don't I check out my phone? Because you're used to checking your phone so often that you're feeling physically the discomfort of not checking your phone for half an hour. And you check your phone and you get distracted from the movie. And then after half an hour, you do it again and again, and you destroy part of your movie experience, potentially. Why? Because the boxes creep up. The boxes, they turn into patterns, into habits. Checking your phone is something that the average person does 58 times a day. Just fucking depressing statistic. And also people, I don't remember, in the US or where they spent on average 6 hours on their phone. Danny, my colleague, made a terrified face. Yeah, 6 hours on the phone and 58 times a day checking. So the boxes will creep in. Where will the boxes not creep in? If you have a perceived danger, if you're lost in a forest for a first time and you think it's dangerous, it's actually not dangerous. But if you think it's dangerous, then you would forget your fucking Instagram. You just see how to get out of this forest. So this is very helpful to just get rid of the boxes for a while and have a true perfect flow, not obstructed by any boxes, so that the flows can grow in power and the boxes can have their power reduced. So the perceived danger is helping this, and it doesn't have to be real danger. Humans are so bad at evaluating danger. Probably people lost in a forest, again with no dangerous animals or humans, would probably think that they are in danger, but when they're traveling with a car along the road, they would not think they are in danger. But statistically, it's more dangerous to be in the car and travel in the car because you can get into a car crash and get injured or die, while in the forest, not much can happen. Like you can step badly and sprain your ankle, and then you have to call for help and you build a sprained ankle, but you won't die in the forest. There are no monsters in the forest. There's no real danger in the forest. So perceived danger is important. And also another very important thing is invention and ownership. You have to invent and own what you're doing. So if you are walking in the park after rain and there are puddles of water after the rain, and you just think that it will be cool to jump over the puddles, and you have never seen anyone else do that since probably your childhood, you are inventing this and you have ownership, and this makes this more enjoyable, but also much more of a flow because you're engaging all of your curiosity and creativity in this process. So this is extremely healthy for mental health. And also, if you can like drop in a puddle or something, there's also the perception of physical danger, and this also helps with having your flows rule the process and diminishing the power of the boxes. So we're gonna look at a lot of examples of things I have actually done that have actually helped my mental health, things that are unpopular forests that sometimes have a perceived danger, and things that I have more or less invented myself. I haven't seen them from anywhere else, and while you can copy some of these from me and still get the perceived danger benefit, they will not be yours unless you do it in a slightly different way. So you should also try to come up with your own unpopular forest. Just use everything around you. We'll see examples in nature. We'll see examples in my favorite, public transportation. We'll see examples in work, in communication. We'll see a lot of different examples, and you can everywhere you are, use what's around you right now to generate flow experiences. I cannot emphasize how critical this is to your mental health and progress in life. The only way to strategically get rid of the boxes which the world is literally shoving down your throat in any minute, the only way to get rid of those is to fight back at all time with all possible means, which means understand how humans work, understand yourself, and understand the world in a way that will help you find your own unpopular forests so you can have flow experience in them, an experience that you can plan, experience that you can share with others, an experience that will make you unstoppable in life.